Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have a supersized post-debate show for you today with all three Rising hosts on set. And I'm also excited to announce that we have interviews today with the three major third-party presidential candidates, Libertarian Chase Oliver, the Green Party's Jill Stein, and of course, RFK Jr. Now, those are coming up a bit later. But first, Washington is in full panic mode after Joe Biden's performance.
That's right. Last night's debate between Biden and former President Donald Trump was a wake-up call for many in the Democratic Party who are now thinking the formerly unthinkable, replacing Joe Biden on the presidential ticket. According to Politico, one major Democratic donor and Biden supporter said it was time for him to end his campaign. He said in a text message, Biden needs to drop out, no question about it. The donor described Biden's night as the worst performance in history and said Biden was so bad that no one will pay attention to Trump's lies. Another Democratic donor wrote over text message, "Our only hope is that he bows out. We've brokered a convention or he dies. Otherwise, we are effing dead."
Former Democratic Missouri Senator Claire McCaskill offered her analysis of the debate on MSNBC last night. Let's watch.
Well, first, the easy part. Donald Trump is a liar, a flawed character, mean, a jerk, very unlikable, and that was obvious tonight. Now, the hard and heartbreaking part. I have been a surrogate for some presidential candidates in my time. I know what the job is after a debate of a surrogate. I've never wanted to be a surrogate more than I do right now. Because when you're a surrogate, you have to focus on the positives. But I have said very clearly and very plainly on this network, and my job now is to be really honest. Joe Biden had one thing he had to do tonight, and he didn't do it. He had one thing he had to accomplish, and that was reassure America that he was up to the job at his age. And he failed at that tonight.
Co-host of Pod Save the World and regular MSNBC contributor Ben Rhodes said, "Imagine what this looks like to young people in this country."
And then former Obama staffer Tommy Vietor wrote on X, "Why are we talking about effing golf?" with respect to that extended conversation over whose handicap was superior. Former Biden White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield chimed in, "It was a really disappointing debate performance from Joe Biden. I don't think there's any other way to slice it. His biggest issue was to prove to the American people that he had the energy, the stamina, and he didn't do that." And take a look at these headlines from the New York Times, which are really, really bad for Joe Biden. Repeated calls for him to drop out. Look, there's no dissent here. This was a full-on disaster for the president.
Absolutely. To see the New York Times reporting this, so many key Democratic strategists that have been making excuses for Biden when we've been complaining about this for quite some time, right? The right and the left have been saying, Biden is too old. Get someone else in there. There are reports of him trailing off in meetings, and they're saying, well, this is progressive staffers just because they want someone more progressive in there. No, this is a real concern. I'm not just concerned about his potential to win, which I think is abysmal. I'm concerned that he is the commander-in-chief today. And this is a threat for national security today, that everyone around the world saw that this is who is running the United States of America.
Remember when the White House tried to make it seem like if you had concerns related to his age or his stumbling around, that was all, digitally manipulated videos? I don't think that claim has survived the night.
No, Karine Jean-Pierre referred to those videos of Biden in Normandy or at the Juneteenth celebration as cheap fakes, which was just an incredible manipulation of language to suggest that videos that didn't run for 5 minutes long and show the entire event were somehow altered in some way to give a false impression. But I have two questions coming out of this, or two sort of theories that I'm toying with. And one is that the Democrats knew that Biden was this bad. They kept him away at Camp David for a week in preparation for this to give everybody the idea that he was going to be well rested and prepared and on whatever medicinal routine that he needed to be on, so that when he did come out and completely embarrass himself, they had the impetus to finally talk about actually replacing Joe Biden. or they really had deluded themselves for this long about the president's cognitive state, and they were genuinely surprised by how terribly this turned out.
I mean, if they saw this coming, they should not have agreed to a debate. They should have just said, make some lame excuse, and everyone would have complained about it. Been like, Donald Trump lies so much, and it's impossible to fact check him in real time, so we're not even going to do it. That would have been less devastating for the campaign than this. Or now they said, and he did sound with the muffled and the whispered, he sounded ill, like he has a cold. They should have said, no, he's very ill and we have to reschedule this for later, because this has been so devastating for the campaign. Everyone who had concerns about his age feels validated. He mumbled through answers that should have been very easy on abortion, on Trump, on the right's weak, statistically polling-wise issue, the only issue where Democrats and Biden are more trusted by people on that issue. He accidentally pivoted to illegal immigrant crime. He invited Trump to pivot to the horrific murder that took place recently, his worst issue, which Trump, of course, pounced on immediately. It was one of the worst rhetorical decisions I've ever seen in a debate.
Well, and then he talked about people being raped by their sisters and needing to
their
get abortions.
in-laws.
Their in-laws. Just really bizarre stuff. And I mean, the real roadblock here, I think, is Jill Biden, Dr. Jill, because they went out after this debate to have a little victory lap. And I'm sure you all saw this video where her reaction to Joe's performance is to tell him, great job, you answered all of the questions. I mean, she talks to him like he's a disabled toddler. And this is supposed to be someone who loves this man, who has vowed to spend her life with him in sickness and in health. And it's honestly devastating to me that she cannot see what is happening and has apparently not given the go-ahead for him to step aside. And CNN is now reporting this morning, according to sources close to the campaign, that not only is Biden determined not to drop out, but he is committed to participating in the second debate in September.
Joe Biden.
Progressives have to be feeling very I told you so in this moment, for saying, like, this is a disaster. He has all these weaknesses. And is the left taking a victory lap here?
No, because we're so used to having these I told you so moments with the Democratic Party that it's just like, why does this keep happening? We're ready for it to end. I'm sick of being able to tell the Democratic Party I told you so. I wish that they would have listened sooner. But I think what happened is you have a DNC and the leadership of the Democratic Party that just picks darling candidates that will embrace their message, which is, we're going to say nice things about supporting civil rights, and then we're going to do the bare minimum once we get into power. We're going to say that we stand up for working families, but once we get into office, we're going to prop up corporations almost just as much as the Republicans do. And you have all of these campaign promises that are made, and we don't get deliverance once they get into public office. And Joe Biden was the darling of the Democratic Party. He wanted to run so many times over. This is someone who could speak eloquently as a senator, and then we saw his mental state last night. And he wants power so badly, and they want to support the darlings of the Democratic Party so badly, the people that will stand up for that vision and not have any real values of their own. And so what we have now is just this very sad old man not willing to relinquish that power. And I think the people very close to him intentionally sabotaging this debate for him. They pushed for this debate to happen at CNN.
And it has become the case where in American politics, people die in office. We have the oldest, we have a gerontocracy, we have, our Dianne Feinstein, Republican leadership isn't much younger. There's no way to clear these people out. They don't get forcibly retired. I still don't think Joe Biden will or can be swapped out unless he basically consents to that, unless he says, you know what, I'm done. And you're right that it would take a really harsh reckoning from someone close to him, like his wife, to convince him that you need to step aside. Without his willingness to do that, it's not going to happen. And then, of course, you have the problem that Kamala Harris is extremely unpopular, but doesn't want to be passed over, that there's no obvious successor. So it would be a bloodbath if it occurs. But they have to be looking at the debate performance, the poll numbers, and saying, unless something dramatic happens, Donald Trump is very likely. He was likely already, and now he's even more likely to be reelected President of the United States. One other thing I wanted to say about the debate is, because we've all been, I have and both of you, so critical of CNN and mainstream media, and I had so much skepticism of the format for this debate and whether it was just going to be the moderators essentially doing Joe Biden's job for him and arguing with Donald Trump. I thought it was a phenomenally moderated debate. I thought it was substantive. I thought the format worked. They pressed the candidates to answer questions where they didn't feel that they'd actually addressed the question, but they did it respectfully, and it didn't get browbeating, or they didn't cut people off. I thought it was really good.
Joe Biden might not have cleared his very low bar, but the CNN moderators, I think, did.
Yeah. I think they absolutely did. And I think something else we saw last night was, with Joe Biden trailing off, Donald Trump was not angry like I think a lot of people expected him to be. He showed up and he was kind of soft and well-mannered, honestly. Disciplined. And we've seen him on the campaign trail giving these very long speeches. He's used to talking about his positions in public, whether or not he'll commit to concrete policies, but he talks about his political positions. But what we saw last night was Joe Biden unable to even say the talking points that he spent days training on. And we watched as he meshed them together. He talked about how we need to end the ban on asylum and we have to beat Medicare. And it's like he had these ideas of talking points and only remembered certain words from those sentences and pushed them together. And I think they made him lose his voice with how much he was preparing. I don't think he ever got to a point where he was genuinely prepared. And really seeing that last night, I think the Democratic Party donors are going to be effective in pushing him out with this extreme of a reaction.
Yeah, Biden was very hectoring and angry, but it didn't feel sincere or genuine. Trump, was angry about the state of the country, but it was like, I'm upset, but I'm upset on your behalf, is I think the vibe Trump gave.
Yeah, and I think that was intentional. I don't think Trump wanted to go in there and have a repeat of the first debate in 2020 where he was really going after Joe Biden very aggressively, because who wants to be the guy who's beating up on the well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory?
I think Trump listened to good advice for once. I think his people prepared him and said, here's what you need to do in this debate, and he listened, and he really did pull it off, although it was going to be very easy to do given the state Biden was in. All right, we have lots more debate reaction today. Like I said, we have fantastic interviews with all the next three major third-party candidates: Chase Oliver, Jill Stein, RFK Jr. We know you won't want to miss that. Stick around, more Rising to come.